Welcome, y'all. It's my favorite podcaster, Donna D, and the Urban Mommy Podcast. Make sure y'all subscribe and share. Tell a friend and hit that bell to keep up with the latest updates, because you don't want to miss what my girl got to say. I'm just saying. The Urban Mommy Podcast. Let's go.
Hello, everybody. This is your girl, Donna D, aka the Urban Mommy, and I am back with another podcast. Today, I am joined by Dr. Silber, Dr. Debi, and we are going to be talking about, well, what I named it is backstabbers, but we're going to be talking about post-betrayal, right?
Yep.
Great.
Betrayal.
Okay,
Post-betrayal.
So would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Dr. Debi Silber, founder and CEO of the PBT, which stands for Post-Betrayal Transformation Institute. I've been in business over 32 years. And of course, you don't teach something like betrayal unless you have to. So happy to share my story, and we could take it from there.
Perfect. So like you said, with betrayal, it's basically something that you went through and then you probably learned a little bit more about it. So can you tell us a little bit about the betrayal?
Yeah, sure. So, like I said, I've been in business 32 years. It was health, mindset, personal development. And then I had a really painful betrayal from my family. Thought I did everything I needed to do to heal from that. It happened again a few years later. This time it was my husband. That was the deal breaker. So I got him out of the house, and here I was, 4 kids, 6 dogs, a thriving business. And I was like, I have to heal. Like I just had no choice. And like a book wasn't getting me out of this jam. So I decided to go back for a PhD. And it was in transpersonal psychology, the psychology of transformation and human potential, because I was changing so much. I didn't quite understand it. He was too, wasn't ready to look at that. And then it was time to do a study. So I studied betrayal. What holds us back? What helps us heal? And what happens to us physically, mentally, and emotionally when the people closest to us lie, cheat, and deceive. And that study led to 3 groundbreaking discoveries, which changed my health, my family, my work, my life.
Wow. So while you were dealing with it, I know you said you went back to school, but did you do anything else, journaling, therapy, or anything like that?
Well, what I started doing was everything the study proved was working. If the study showed that it was working, I did it. And if it said, if it proved that it wasn't working, I didn't. And that's why I healed as quickly as I did. And that's what led to the PBT Institute. And I can share the discoveries if you want to hear them.
Yes, of course. I definitely want to hear them. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the first discovery was that, I had a feeling betrayal was a different type of trauma. Like I had been through death of a loved one. I had been through disease. And I was like, betrayal feels different for me. I didn't want to assume it was the same for all my study participants. So I asked him, if you've been through other traumas besides betrayal, does it feel different for you? And unanimously, they said, oh my gosh, it feels so different. And here's why. Because it feels so intentional, we take it so personally. So the entire self gets shattered. Rejection, abandonment, belonging, confidence, worthiness, trust. Like when you lose someone you love, you grieve, you're sad, you mourn the loss. Life will never be the same. But you don't necessarily take it personally. You don't lose your ability to trust. You don't question the entire relationship. You don't question your sanity. With betrayal, you do. So that betrayal is a very different type of trauma. That was the first discovery.
Okay, so betrayal is a different type. Did you notice that the type of betrayal, was it any different, like a breakup versus a friend doing something?
Yeah. Originally I was studying betrayals of family members, partners, friends, and I actually had to drop the friend part because while friends can aggravate you, infuriate you, they don't break you. Of course, you never broken, bent, like a family member or a partner. Those are the ones that get us the most. When the heart's involved, it takes it to a whole other level.
Okay. So what were some other discoveries? You said it was 3. What was the second one?
Yeah. So the second was that there's actually a collection of symptoms, physical, mental, and emotional, so common to betrayal, it's known as post-betrayal syndrome. And we've had I don't know, 95,000 people or so take our post-betrayal syndrome quiz on our site to see to what extent they're struggling. And, a few things about that. We've all been taught time heals all wounds. I have the proof that when it comes to betrayal, that's not true. There's a question on the quiz that says, is there anything else you'd like to share? And people write things like, my betrayal happened 35 years ago. I'm unwilling to trust. My betrayal happened 40 years ago. I can still feel the hate. So we know you cannot count on time. You cannot count on a new relationship to heal it. Healing heals it, deliberately and intentionally healing it. And every few months, I pull the stats from the quiz to see where people land. You want me to share some?
Yes, please.
Sure. So now imagine 95,000 people, men, women, just about every country is represented. Okay. And listen to these numbers too. Out of all of them, 78% constantly revisit their experience. 81% feel a loss of personal power. 94% deal with painful triggers. And if you've had those triggers, you know how painful they can be. The most common physical symptoms, 71% have low energy, 68% have sleep issues, 63% have extreme fatigue. So you sleep a whole night, you wake up, you're exhausted. That's how you know your adrenals have tanked. 47% have weight changes. So in the beginning, maybe you can't hold food down. Later on, you're using food for comfort. You're emotionally eating. 45% have digestive issues. And that could be anything. Crohn's, IBS, diverticulitis, constipation, diarrhea, you name it. The most common mental symptoms, 78% are overwhelmed. 68% can't focus. 62% can't concentrate. So imagine you can't concentrate. You have a gut issue. You're exhausted. You still have to go to work. You still have to raise your kids. That's not even emotionally. So emotionally, 88% experience extreme sadness. 83% are very angry. And you can go back and forth between those two emotions all day long. 80% have anxiety. Just a few more. This is why I wrote my book, Trust Again. 84% have an inability to trust. 84%. 67% prevent themselves from forming deep relationships because they're afraid of being hurt again. 82% find it hard to move forward. 90% want to move forward, but they don't know how.
Wow. So with the findings, do they tell you, do they help you to get over the trauma? Is it really easy to do that?
Well, easy, no, but I will. That was the third discovery. And just before we leave the symptoms of post-betrayal syndrome, and those numbers are high. You didn't hear me say one thing, 20%, 30%.
No.
What's even crazier about that is that's not even necessarily from a recent betrayal. That could be from the parent who did something awful when you were a kid. That could be from the girlfriend or boyfriend who broke your heart in high school. So think about this. That person may not know, care, remember. They may not even be alive. And here we are, decades later, with these symptoms because of something that happened those years ago. The good news is you could heal from all of it, which was the third discovery. Happy to share what that was.
Okay, you could go ahead with the third one.
Yeah. So the third discovery, for me, this was the most exciting because this is where a roadmap was just discovered. And what was discovered was while we can stay stuck for years, decades, a lifetime, and so many people do, if we're going to fully heal, and by fully heal, I mean symptoms of post-betrayal syndrome, like I just shared, to this completely rebuilt place where you rebuild your life and yourself called post-betrayal transformation, we're going to go through 5 proven, predictable stages. And what's even more exciting about that is we know what happens physically, mentally, and emotionally at every stage. And we know what we need to do in order to move from one stage to the next. Healing is entirely predictable. Happy to share the stages if you want to hear them.
Of course, because we're all about healing. So however you can help, we'll definitely appreciate it.
Yeah. So they're all mapped out in my book, Trust Again. It's all we do within the PBT Institute. It's what all of our coaches are certified in. I'm going to give you like a boiled down version. So stage 1, this is before it happens. And if you can imagine 4 legs of the table, the 4 legs being physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. What I saw with everybody, me too, was a heavy lean on the physical and the mental, thinking and doing, and kind of neglecting or ignoring the emotional and the spiritual, feeling and being. Well, if a table only has two legs, right, easy for that table to get knocked over, and that's us. Stage 2, shock, trauma, D-Day, discovery day. This is the scariest of all of the stages. And it's the breakdown of the body, the mind, and the worldview. You just got the news right now that forever changes your life, right? And right there, right at that very moment, the nervous system, the stress response is ignited. You're now headed for every single stress-related symptom, illness, condition, disease. Your mind is in a complete and total state of chaos and overwhelm. You cannot wrap your mind around what you just learned. This makes no sense. And your worldview has just been shattered. Your worldview is your mental model, the rules that govern you, that prevent chaos. Trust this person. This is how life works. These are the rules. And in one earth-shattering moment or series of moments, every rule you've held to be real and true is no longer. The bottom has bottomed out on you. Every single person remembers their D-Day, right? It's right. You remember it. And the bottom has bottomed out on you and a new bottom hasn't been formed yet. That is terrifying. But think about it. The stage 2 is by far the scariest of all of the stages. But if the bottom were to bottom out on you, what would you do? You'd grab hold of anything or anyone in order to stay safe and stay alive. And that's stage 3. Survival instincts emerge. It's the most practical out of all of the stages. If you can't help me, get out of my way. How do I survive this experience? Who can I trust? Where do I go? How do I feed my kids? Right? Here's the trap though. Stage 3, by far, hands down, is the most common place we all get stuck. And here's why. And so many people that you know are in stage 3 right now. Here's why. Once you've figured out how to survive your experience, because it feels so much better than the shock and trauma of where you just came from, you think it's good, right? You're like, okay. And because you don't know there's anywhere else to go, you don't know there's a stage 4 or stage 5, transformation doesn't even begin until stage 4. But because you don't know there's anywhere else to go, you plant roots here, you park here. You're not supposed to, but you don't know that. And 4 things happen. The first thing is you start getting all those small self-benefits. You get to be right? You get sympathy from everyone you tell your story to. And on some level, that feels good. You don't have much else, so it feels good. So you plant deeper roots. And now that you're here longer than you should be, the mind starts doing things like, well, maybe you're not that great. Maybe you deserved it. Maybe this, maybe that. So you plant deeper roots. Again, you're not supposed to be here, but you don't know that. And now because these are the thoughts you're thinking, well, this is the energy you're putting out. Like energy attracts like energy, right? So now you start calling situations and circumstances and even relationships towards you to confirm, yep, this is where you belong. This is when you'll join that lame support group, right? And you'll sabotage your healing because you don't want to outgrow your people. This is where you start healing, but you're afraid to outgrow your betrayer who's not changing, and you sabotage yourself so you don't outgrow your betrayer. It's a bad trap, right? This is where we sabotage ourselves. It gets worse, but I'll get you out of here. Because it feels so bad, but we don't know there's anywhere else to go, right here, we start numbing, avoiding, distracting. So we start using food, drugs, alcohol, work, TV, keeping busy, whatever it is, to numb, avoid, and distract ourselves from this painful place. So think about it. You do it for a day, a week, a month. Now it's a habit, a year, 10 years, 20 years. And I can see someone 20 years later and say, hey, that emotional eating you're doing, or that drinking, or that numbing in front of the TV, do you think that has anything to do with your betrayal? And they would look at me like I'm crazy. They would say it happened 20 years ago. All they did was lock themselves in stage 3 and stay there. Does that make sense?
Yes, definitely. They stayed there. I'm taking notes. I'm sorry. And what was the 5th stage?
Well, we didn't even get to the 4th. So that stage 3. So anyway, trust again maps out all 5 stages, but everyone's stuck in stage 3. So I wrote from harden to heal just for the stage 3ers. You owe it to yourself to move through the stages. The worst of it happened already, but that's where we land, and it's quicksand. Most people stay there. Anyway, if you're willingness is the big word right there, to let go of those small self-benefits, grieve, mourn the loss, bunch of things you need to do. You move to stage 4. Stage 4 is finding and adjusting to a new normal. So here's where you acknowledge, I can't undo what happened, but I get to control what I do with it. Right there in that decision, you turn down the stress response. You're not healing just yet, but at least right then, you stop the massive damage that you'd been creating in stages 2 and stage 3. Stage 4 feels like if you've ever moved. If you've ever moved to a new house, office, condo, apartment, whatever, all your stuff's not there. It's not cozy yet, but you're like, okay, we can do this. It feels like that. But think about it. If you were to move, you don't take everything with you, right? You don't take those things that don't represent who you want to be once you're in your new space. Like, why would you pack up all your garbage and take it with you, right?
Right.
What I found was there's this one spot going from stage 3 to stage 4. If your friends weren't there for you, you don't take them with you. That lame support group that was holding you back, you've outgrown them right here. That betrayer who's not changing, you've just outgrown them. Very common in stage 4. And people say to me all the time, what the heck? I've had these friends 10, 20, 30 years. Is it me? Yes, it is. You're undergoing a transformation. And if they don't rise, they don't come. You've outgrown them. Anyway, when we've made this new mental space cozy, we've made it home, we move into the 5th most beautiful stage. And this is healing, rebirth, and a new worldview. The body starts to heal. Self-love, self-care, eating well, exercise, stuff like that. We didn't have the bandwidth for that earlier. We were surviving. Now we do. We're making new rules. We're making new boundaries based on the road we just traveled. And we have a new worldview based on everything we see so clearly now. And remember in the beginning, it was all about the physical and the mental. By this point, we're more solidly grounded and we're focused on the emotional and the spiritual too. Those are the 5 stages.
Okay. So I have some questions. I know sometimes when people are addressing trauma, based on what I learned today, sometimes it seems like they skip steps. So a lot of people may they may accept, they acknowledge that they have trauma, but then it almost seems like they skip to step 5. They start trying to do self-care. So what happens when they don't do this correctly?
Yeah, you can do self-care, and that's a great thing to do with your shock and trauma of stage 2, and it'll help you. But there is no skipping steps. There's no missing steps. No. You must move through all of them. So self-care is a really important thing, especially in the earlier stages, because when your life has been completely upended and you feel like everything has been taken out of control, something as simple as what you eat and how you move may be the only things you have control over. So it's important, but you don't, just because you're implementing some self-care, that doesn't put you in stage 5.
Right. Well, I was saying, like, they do self-care and they think they have a new person that they've seen, or they are this new person and they want to jump to the new life. But a lot of times they skip those steps and then something happens and they get re-triggered because they never technically dealt with the healing the correct way.
Yeah, you can't. That's it. So it's almost like they're a stage 5 wannabe. It's like the person who says, "No, I'm healed. I'm good as long as I don't see him." That doesn't mean no.
Right. You're not right. You're not healed. So there's like a lot of stuff right now going on TikTok. Everyone is doing shadow work. Are you familiar with that?
Yep.
Does that play into this any kind of way? Is it something?
Well, where I would say it does play in, there's always a shadow side of everything that we're doing. And also, it has, as much as it has to do, let's say, with your most recent betrayal. When I have people work on their betrayal, very often they find it's been a pattern. And a repeat betrayal is a sign of an unhealed betrayal. And when I ask them to just trace it back, very often that, betrayal happened from childhood that was never moved through, worked through, dealt with. So what happens is we keep getting opportunities in the form of people to teach us a deep, profound lesson. Not that it's our fault, but it's our opportunity. Like, let's say you never believed you were lovable, worthy, and deserving. Let's say you grew up to believe your needs don't matter or your boundaries don't exist, right? You get an opportunity to finally realize that. And until and unless you do, you're going to keep getting people showing up in your life to get you to implement that.
Okay. So from your work that you've done over these couple decades at this point, Where do you find the most betrayal? Parents, kids, spouse, friends, family?
It ranges. Betrayal is so widespread. It's really from, that person's current level of consciousness. They're acting in a way that they're not thinking of their actions or what their actions will create. And I define betrayal as really the breaking of any spoken or unspoken rule. And every relationship has them. And the way it
Yeah.
works is the more we trust and the more we depend on that person, the deeper the betrayal. So let's say a child, for example, who's totally dependent on their parent and the parent's something awful, that's going to have a different impact than, let's say, your coworker taking credit for your idea. Still a betrayal, different
Right.
level of cleanup needed.
Different level. And that was actually my next question. I was going to ask, how do you deal with, or how can we help children who deal with betrayal?
Yeah. It's so important for kids to deal with this betrayal, because if they don't, that's what they know. And they will move into relationships that are not good, that are so similar, because it's like, I know how to do this, and it impacts their self-esteem, their confidence, their lack of, they'll have a lack of self-worth. So unless they heal that, I mean, think about it. Just nothing more than, if you lack confidence and self-esteem, look at what the kind of life you can expect for yourself, compared to if you heal that and you realize, wow, you know what? I'm all that. I'm good. I'm healthy. I'm whole. I'm healed. I'm lovable. Look at the different life you can have from that. So it's so important for kids to heal this.
Okay. So when we're talking about healing, would it be better, or is it easier if you have that other person to that wants to be, I guess, forgiven? Is it easier, or can you do it without that other person?
Yeah, there's actually something we teach within the PBT Institute, and it's, how do you know if it's excuse me, safe and in your best interest to heal and rebuild with someone, or heal and move along. And there are clear ways to know. But this is why a lot of people, I mean, the most well-meaning couples counselors and stuff, it fails tragically. We have so many people coming into the PBT Institute with therapy trauma, because if the only intention is just to get the couple like, okay, it doesn't work, because the person who's been betrayed never feels validated, never feels heard. The person who was the betrayer never really gets the impact of what their actions created. So the way we do it within the PBT Institute is we work with the betrayed and we get them to their physical, mental, and emotional best. We have a program too, a rebuild program for the betrayer. We get them to their physical, mental, and emotional best, and then they meet back up again up here.
Okay. So do you think that the person needs closure?
Everybody needs closure. Yeah. But closure doesn't mean reconciliation.
Okay.
Sometimes when they heal, they realize, I've completely outgrown that person. Sometimes, like in my own experience, healing and rebuilding is always a choice, whether you rebuild yourself and move on. That's what I did with my family. Wasn't an option to rebuild with them. Or if the situation lends itself as to completely transform people, I married my husband again. I never would have done that if I didn't completely transform, and if he didn't completely transform. But a lot of times one person will heal, and then they look and they're like, wow, I don't even, that I've completely outgrown that person. Or it could, the other person has no intention of healing, then you have really nothing to work with there.
That's true. Yeah. Because a lot of times we have people that aren't really sorry. And that's, to me, the betrayal that I dealt with. It was trying to deal with the person and to work on forgiveness, which was big for me, because the person that I was trying to forgive did not really want to be forgiven. They were still reoffending.
There's very little to work with there. That's where you heal yourself and you move along.
Yeah, you just have to move along. Okay. So where does forgiveness come in?
Forgiveness is huge. We actually, the PBT Institute just founded National Forgiveness Day, which is every September 1st. So
Okay.
we just kicked off our first one this past September. Forgiveness is huge. But when you forgive for the wrong reasons, it backfires every time. I mean, of course, forgiveness is for us. It has very little to do with the other person. Forgiveness does not mean reconciling. It means you're releasing the power that pain has over you, because that situation, that experience took so much from you. The forgiveness piece just simply releases the power of that pain.
Okay. And something that I've been struggling with forgiveness for a long time, but one of the things that concepts that I literally just learned was forgiving yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I didn't even really know that was a thing. We always talk about forgiveness, but we never talk about actually forgiving ourselves and giving ourselves grace for some of the things that we deal with. So what do you tell a person that has a hard time, I guess, because they've been betrayed so much that it's hard for them
Mm-hmm.
to forgive? How would you address that?
Yeah, they need to heal the betrayal, because repeat betrayal is a clear sign of an unhealed betrayal. And that they will have a lifetime of betrayals until and unless they deliberately and intentionally move through the 5 stages from betrayal to breakthrough. They are stuck. That's how you know someone's in stage 3. And they stay in stage 3 for life. And it's just a lifetime of repeat betrayals, of health issues, of, all kinds of challenges, because they're living a stage 3 life. That's what you can expect in stage 3. So what they need to do is move through the stages. And then as they're doing that, they learn about acceptance and forgiveness and how to trust again and all of these things. But you can't learn that in stage 3 if you're stuck and committed to being in stage 3.
Gotcha. Do you ever find that people sometimes go backwards in the stages?
You outgrow a stage as you move into the next one. But it's like, if you were to see what I'm doing with my hand here, it's not smooth and graceful. It's like this, right? Now you see, I keep moving one way, but I'm
Right.
going back a little, but I
Back.
keep going, this way. It's like that. It's you're gonna be triggered. You're gonna have something set you back. But once you're moving through the stages, you don't go back into that stage 2 again, or that stage 3. No.
Okay. And I did want to reiterate this again because you mentioned it earlier. We kind of went over it quickly. But if you think that you are healed, but you are still triggered by something, that means you are not healed.
No, no.
You're not
That's why I
healed.
wrote from hardened to healed. Are you healed or are you hardened? We think, and like, here's an example. I see an unhealed betrayal, people coming into the PBT Institute all the time. It's affecting their health, their work, their relationships. In relationships, I'll see it in one of 2 ways. The first is a repeat betrayal, clear sign they're in stage 3. That's not healed. The second way is they put the big wall up. They're like, nope, no one's getting near me again. Now they think that's coming from a place of strength. It's not. It's coming from fear. Their heart was so hurt and shattered, they're unwilling to risk that level of vulnerability. So to take that risk of being hurt again, they would rather keep everybody away. That's not healed. That's hardened. You see?
Hardened. Okay. Can you give me an example of repeat betrayal? So in a repeat betrayal, will the betrayer do it again, or
Yeah.
how does that go?
Yeah. Or so a repeat betrayal could be, let's say you're in a relationship and there's been infidelity and there's really not a big consequence to it. And then it happens again. And then it happens again. And then it happens again. And you're sticking around for it. Look what that's doing. There are no consequences for the betrayer. And the one that's taken the biggest hit is you, because there were 3 groups in my study who did not heal. And there was a group where the betrayer had very little consequences. I saw 2 things. I saw a worsening of their relationship, and I saw that this was the group with the most symptoms of post-betrayal syndrome. Your broken heart can't handle that. But if we don't do something to create a different result, we keep having the same thing. So it's a repeat betrayal within a relationship, or you get out of that relationship and you move into another one and it's the same thing, and another one and it's the same thing. And you say, what the heck, is it me? Yes, it is. Not in that it's your fault. It's your opportunity. There's that lesson and you're not getting it. Like, look at my example. First, it was my family. I thought I learned something. I didn't, clearly, because then it was my husband. And then for me to enroll in a PhD program, I didn't know how I was going to pay for it. I didn't know how I was going to manage the time. I had never done anything for myself. I never took my own needs seriously. But look what happened. changed my life, right? Lesson learned. So until and unless you get that big lesson, you're going to have those repeat betrayals to show you lessons not learned. And we're going to keep coming at you until you get it.
Okay. You mentioned something about retelling the story, and sometimes they get something. You said they get something out of it. Do you think that retelling the story is not a good thing?
No, this is why we have so many people coming into the PBT Institute with therapy trauma. Because think about it, you go to a therapist, and I'm a psychologist, I'm a coach first, and you unpack. You tell your story. You tell it over and over and over again. Think about what happens. Yes, you feel heard. You also feel re-traumatized. You also feel revalidated. You also feel, right? And that's all you get. So yeah, you may feel okay resharing, but if you notice how your body feels and how you feel, you're not any closer to being healed than before you share that story. So what we do and what our certified coaches do, we hear your story so that we know what to do with it, to inch you closer to the next stage. Just to be heard doesn't help you. If anything glues you to stage 3, it's constantly going over your story without a strategic plan to move forward into the next stage.
Okay, so that's important, guys. So if you are retelling the story, and if you are not under the care of a therapist or a psychologist, you really need to be careful, because you are re-traumatizing yourself.
Well, and here's the thing. A lot of people are under the care of a psychologist, psychiatrist, therapist, but if they're not highly skilled in betrayal, it's doing more harm than good. So they have to know about betrayal. They have to know about the 5 stages, because they're in the best of intentions. They're hearing their client over and over and over again. And every time they do, the client is revalidating the reason for being in stage 3.
So if you're looking for someone, you should look for someone that is certified in betrayal as
Certified
well.
that's why we have our certified PBT post-betrayal transformation coaches and practitioners. That's all we do within PBT. Members see our coaches, they all specialize in different things because they're all really good at different stages. So we have some that specialize in regulating your nervous system, which is completely out of whack when you've been shocked. And then we have others that specialize in reconciliation, or specialize in separation and divorce, specialize in self-growth, because at different stages you need different things.
Okay. You also you talked about the survey where you spoke about the health issues that people go through, and that was just from a survey, but I know there are several studies that actually validate this information, that our mental can definitely affect our physical. Can you speak on that a little bit?
Yeah. Well, the symptoms of post-betrayal syndrome are all very real, and it's physical, mental, and emotional symptoms. But think about it. What happens is, so often, like, imagine your betrayal is at the root right here. Because of that, just imagine things shooting off of that. You have sleep issues. You have adrenal issues. You have thyroid issues. You have digestive issues, right? You have weight changes. And then think about what people do. They'll do something to try to lose the weight. They'll do something to help them sleep. They'll do something to help get their thyroid or adrenals back in gear, right? So they're doing all these things to manage the symptoms. But why are all those symptoms showing up? Because of that unhealed betrayal at the root. You heal the betrayal, every single symptom heals.
Right. So it's probably important for most people to either have somebody to talk to in their life. Because it's like most people deal with something of this, especially betrayal. That's very, like you said, it's very common. So probably most people should have somebody. And I'm glad I'm actually speaking with you today, because before reading about you, I never heard of it. I never even knew that this was something, because this is really big. This is to me, it's huge, because a lot of times we talk about infidelity, and just some people just really can't get over it. But now this explains why, because they are stuck in those stages where they they can't.
That's it. I mean, that's why we're trying to, I just want everybody to know about the 5 stages, so they know they've been living for years, if not decades, in that stage 3, and they owe it to themselves to move through the stages. I mean, I didn't do anything they couldn't do, but anybody else couldn't do, but there wasn't a roadmap. Like, there's a predictable, proven way to move through all of it. And people don't want to hear this, but healing has now become a choice.
Yep. Well, I agree. I think that we are responsible for our own healing. We may not be responsible for the things that happen to us, but once we become adults, we are definitely responsible for fixing it.
Exactly. And the people we see who move into stage 4 and stage 5, like it is so common. I see it every single day. In stage 5, people will have a new idea for a business, or a new new levels of health, new passion projects, new relationships. You didn't have, like, the PBT Institute was a stage 5 thing. You know, you don't have access to these ideas when you're stuck in your trauma. But when you heal from it, when you're far enough removed, you look back and you're like, if I could do that, I could do anything. So in stage 4 and stage 5, that's where we see all of that stuff.
Okay.
It's so beautiful to watch, because that's where I had a retreat not long ago, and it was 11 of our members. 4 out of the 11 started new businesses, because they've come so far, and they were like, it was just birthed out of just pure passion, what they wanted to do, having nothing to do with their current businesses, but because of all the healing that they had done. We see that all the time.
Okay. So how can we learn to trust again?
Yeah, it's a process. We teach a 4-step trust rebuilding process. I don't believe trust can be repaired, but it can be rebuilt. It's, I'll use this analogy. I look at trust like a brick wall. Every opportunity someone has to show that they're trustworthy, that's one brick in that brick wall. So it could take years to build, right? One earth-shattering moment, the whole wall can come tumbling down. Now, you could look at the rubble of bricks and say, I don't have the least bit of interest in watching that thing get rebuilt. Totally fine. However, if you decide you want to watch that brick wall be rebuilt, that would be your only job. You are willing to watch. The other person has to be a really good bricklayer, right? And they have to build that brick wall again, brick by brick by brick. Every opportunity, they have to show that they're trustworthy. That's one brick in that brick wall. But here's what I see. The person who built the brick wall shatters it. They don't really have much of an interest in building it. So the person who's been betrayed is like, fine, I'll do it. No, that's not their job. That's why they never feel safe. That's why they don't trust. That's why they're hypervigilant. It doesn't work.
So how do we know that we have the post-betrayal syndrome?
If you have any of those symptoms I shared, if you think it's just aging, it's just stress. No, it's not. No, it's not. We have had 95,000 people take that quiz. These are symptoms of post-betrayal syndrome: physical, mental, and emotional. Because we also see that when you enter into stage 4 and stage 5, you heal from all of them.
And of course, I mean, it's obvious, but I did want you to speak on it a little bit. It does affect other areas of our lives.
It affects everything
outside of health. I mean,
yeah. Well, think about it. It affects your relationships. I showed you in repeat betrayals, or keeping everybody awake because you're afraid of being hurt again. Think about how it affects you at work. You want to ask for that raise or promotion, but your confidence was shattered in the betrayal, so you don't have the confidence to ask, and you're bitter and resentful instead. Or you want to be a team player, collaborative partner, but the person you trusted the most proved untrustworthy. How do you trust that boss, that coworker, that partner? Shows up everywhere.
That is so true. Okay, so you spoke about your books. Can you kind of show them again and kind of tell us a little bit about like how we can buy them and stuff like that?
Sure. I mean, everything is on the site. The PBT is in post-betrayal transformation, the PBTinstitute.com. But Trust Again maps out the 5 stages. From hardened to healed is just for stage 3. But everything is on the site.
Okay, so the site is the PBTinstitute.com, and then we can take that survey on there as well, correct?
Yep, you can take that survey. You can join us for 3 months in our Reclaim program. And this way you work with our certified coaches, go attend live daily classes. We have master classes with people you can't get appointments with. It's all we do. Classes are numbered, coaches are everything according to what stage you're in. You do all the stage 2 stuff until you're in stage 3. Then you do all the stage 3 stuff until you're in stage 4. It's a predictable, proven way to move through all of it.
Okay. And do they do like a survey to find out what stage, or they just find that out from talking to you?
It takes like a minute to know what stage you're in. And even by me just going over the stages, you probably know what stage you're in. Most people are in stage 3. Yeah.
RN, you said 3. Okay. All right. So as we get to the end of the podcast, I always like to ask, if you can go back and like talk to your 17-year-old self, you can talk to Debbie. What would you tell her?
What I tell her, the road is going to be really rocky. Buckle up, and wait till you get out the other side.
Right. Yes, just hold on, huh?
That's it.
All right. So I definitely appreciate what you said. I have a whole page full of notes that I'm gonna go through. And I definitely think that we may have possibly skipped.
I would just say I know how painful it is. I've been there,
Yeah.
and I know how good it feels to move through it. And like I said before, I didn't do anything anybody else couldn't do. Um, Stage 5 is earned, but you get to become this confident, healed, healthy, whole version of yourself that never would have shown up if the experience didn't happen. That's the version of you that's waiting for you in stages 4 and 5.
Okay. And I do have another question. So my last question that I would like to ask, some people may look at their healing, their recovery, and they may put a timetable to it. And they may say, "Oh, it's been a year. This isn't working. I need to quit." I know there isn't. Everybody's different, but
Mhm.
should somebody give up at any point? I mean, does it take? Because it take 2 years. Could it take 3 years? It takes time, correct?
It has more to do with willingness than time. Because
Okay.
I move people, the people who work at the high level with me, they're committed to moving through all 5 stages in 6 months. It does not have to take a lot of time. When people say
Okay.
it's taking 10, 20, 30 years, well, yeah, because they're not moving through the stages. They're just doing their own thing. We
Mhm.
have, remember that the third discovery was that we know there are 5 stages and we know exactly what we need to do to move
Mhm.
from one stage to the next. So it does not have to take a long amount of time.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, again, thank you so much, Doc, for joining us, and I hope that people were learned something. I hope that they took notes and they follow you. They go check out that website, because betrayal is the website. We all want to heal together. So thank you again for
Thank
being
you.
here. Um, and for the listeners, thank you all. And if the Lord says the same, I will see you all next week. Bye bye.